This is one of the most iconic shots in animation, and I must have seen countless renditions of this very specific action sequence in both animation and as well as live action. But almost all of them lead to this one shot, this one anime, this one cultural phenomenon called Akira. When anime arrived in the 80s, it was still distinctly marketed for a younger audience, and needless to mention, the true form of anime was still not understood by the international audience. For the non-Japanese, the baptism of anime was perhaps through Astro Boy, arguably the first ever anime that was considered to be popular, but something that was undoubtedly for children. But anime began to change in the 80s, widely regarded as the golden age of anime. The 80s brought such variety and genres to television that people simply couldn't look away anymore. But there was still an issue. Even with influential films like Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, the outlook of the Western audience remained relatively the same. Anime was still, for the most part, for children. And it was around this time that a manga artist by the name Katsuhiro Otomo decided to adapt his acclaimed manga series. Enter Akira. Akira was unlike anything else the world had ever seen. It was a spectacle of the highest order, but what it actually did was change the outlook of the outside world towards Japanese animation. The standard was broken, not in quality but in perception. Anime was not only for children, it could be enjoyed by pretty much anyone. The 80s was the era when science fiction began to branch out into even more intricate subgenres. Cosmic horror became a thing. Time travel fascinated people. But amongst the many facets of sci-fi essentials, cyberpunk was perhaps what got people talking. This dystopian future, unlike some of the other branches of sci-fi, was almost like a prediction, a future that could well and truly become reality. And this was the essence of Akira. You see, Otomo was a massive fan of American pop culture, with him even saying that I wanted the page count, the contents, the paintings, everything about it to create a deep, full American comic style world. But on top of that, in the post-war era, through rapid industrialization and a booming domestic market, Japan had climbed up the ranks to become one of the biggest economies in the world. And when a country grows at such a brisk pace, there's bound to be people that are left behind. Which is something else that Otomo states as an inspiration for Neo Tokyo. According to him, there were so many interesting people. Student demonstrations, bikers, political movements, gangsters, homeless youth, all part of the Tokyo scene that surrounded me. In Akira, I projected these elements into the future as science fiction. And when you mix both these elements together, you have the recipe for a perfect cyberpunk story. When Akira entered into production in the mid-80s, it was the most adventurous project that Japanese animation had ever participated in. Since Japan was in the middle of an economic bubble, characterized by inflated prices and an uncontrollable money supply, companies wanted to heavily invest into anime, and it meant that Otomo could get the financial resources to fulfill his vision. The total production budget was around a whopping $10 million, a record budget for an anime film at that time. And such was the scale of the project that when you see the opening credits roll in, you'd find the name Akira Comedy, a coalition of various studios and media companies that came together to realize this ambitious vision. And their meticulous workmanship can be seen in almost every frame of animation. Akira's sheer numbers were unlike anything else that came before it. The movie consisted of more than 2,200 shots and 160,000 single images, which was almost 2 to 3 times more than the standard animated feature. And this meant that the animation could have more information between the frames. The movie was animated in a combination of 1s and 2s, meaning that they had the license to carry out full animation or smooth animation with 24 frames of action jammed into every second of these incredible sequences. And as a result, sometimes Akira looks more fluid than it should be for that time period. But the thing that blows your socks off is the amount of details that you can find in every single image. It's kinda hard to believe that this movie came out in the 80s. Whether it be the intricacies of the jackets or the features on every individual billboard, there is attention to detail of the highest quality. Before Akira, animators used to shy away from vast nighttime sequences, particularly because of how resource intensive they were. And since Akira was defining the cyberpunk genre, it meant that they had to think out of the box.
The film takes place mainly at night. If you look at the color chart, you will see the tremendous variety of dark tones. Many colors you wouldn't see in any other animation.
Akira has one of the most iconic color palettes in the history of cinema. The red jacket of Kaneda even gave birth to a whole new color, which is today known as Akira Red. And in fact, for this project, the animators had to invent colors that had never been used before in Japanese animation. The sprawling nightscapes of Neo Tokyo used a color palette consisting of 327 colors, out of which 50 were literally invented in order to create the effect of a real-life city. And as far as the aesthetic goes, the unwritten rule of character design that gave anime characters cute-looking eyes was completely abandoned, and they were replaced with realistic geometrical eyes. Even the female characters in the movie were designed to look rugged and trivialized to match their environment, the corrupt and unjust system that was Neo Tokyo. Akira was the perfect outlaw, the gritty nonconformist that eventually destroyed people's perspective of what anime can be. When Japanese animation leading into Akira mainly focused on heroes with goodwill and good intentions, Akira perhaps featured the perfect anti-hero. Kaneda was in every way not the perfect role model, but an absolute nobody strung into the middle of a covert and corrupt system. The concept was mature. The philosophy made you think. There was so much potential that was exposed of this new genre that when Akira reached the foreign audience about a year later, people simply could not get enough of it. Without even directly focusing on such a side quest, Otomo had accidentally created a cult classic, something that firmly imprinted itself in Western pop culture. Akira didn't just break one rule, it broke all of them, and in doing so, it changed the perception of Japanese animation forever. But it's kinda crazy how watching Akira today is like watching the birth of modern anime. It's almost like you can trace its impact all the way through history back to the year of 1988, whether it be an icon of cyberpunk like Ghost in the Shell, or a one-of-a-kind space noir that is Cowboy Bebop. You can see elements of Akira embedded into their core, but it was probably one of the first anime that spread its influence across the world of cinema. In Hollywood, you can see the shades of Akira, with its scenes and imagery getting recognition from animators and various artists alike even today. And movies like The Matrix, Blade Runner, and Inception all borrowed some thematic elements from Akira. And even in massive shows like Stranger Things, you can see the imprint of this unique anime. It's hard to precisely quantify the influence of Akira on anime. Even a lot of thematic elements that you see in modern cinema, animation or otherwise, somehow goes back to this masterpiece. But in many ways, in breaking the fundamental rules of animation, Akira didn't just try to be different, it basically changed animation.